Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today we're doing a John Johnson special request.
Oh my God.
He interjected. He's like, hey, you know what we need to do? A wrestling comic about the great and fantastic Andre the Giant.
That's right.
So it is a biography book called Andre the Giant, The Life and Legend by Box Brown, who I've never heard of, actually, which I'm surprised. Most of these authors, I've at least heard their names before. So.
Well, from what I had seen before, he was more of a cartoonist, and he did different things for, was it not the New York Times, but
The New Yorker?
the New Yorker, maybe, yeah.
One of the, I don't know. I don't read newspapers.
I don't read, yeah.
Let me look at my subscription, John, and see what comes every day on the grass.
The point was, I had picked this one up a while back because I've been a wrestling fan on and off most of my life, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, it's like a biography kind of style comic, and I really liked it. And so as we were going back through this, Matt has been introducing me to a lot of things because obviously he's the much more versed and well-read comic fan. But especially DC.
You know, one of our friends, or one of my friends, commented. They're our friends too, but they commented that I'm their DC guru. I was like, ooh, or like our DC, the DC guy. I'm like their guy for like, hey, I need to know something about it. And I was like, ooh, that makes me like, that's like a challenge. Like I need to know more so that if anything weird ever comes up, I need to know what it is.
So get ready for more DC. Is what
basically we're going to be reading a lot more DC. But yeah, so
well, in there as we're reading other things as well, our true crime and some Star Wars stuff. I wanted to throw this one. I wanted to revisit it, and I know Matt liked wrestling a bit when he was young. I know he's not a huge wrestling fan, but
I mean, I liked the Wrestle Buddies, like those dolls that were like almost child size or whatever. And I mean, I remember Macho Man, snap it to a Slim Jim, and like shit like that. I don't think we ever watched wrestling.
Well, you said you like knew little bits here and there and stuff because like I had him. I mean, we watched a WrestleMania together a couple years ago, and he enjoyed it. He was like, "Oh, hey, I know that person." It
is something that I understand why people like it. It's just not for me now.
Yeah.
Like if I was a kid and I got into it then, I would totally get it. It's kind of like watching like your favorite, like a Tiny Toons animated, How I Spent My Summer Vacation movie. If I watch that now, I'm like, oh, I remember being a child and watching it. And I have all these nostalgic memories. If I show it to my wife, who's never seen it before, she's like, why are you watching this kid shit? And it's like, it's kind of like that, where it's like, I get it. I understand why people like it. I just did not grow up watching this. Yeah. And I have all the memories I have of wrestling are like from the Rocky movie, Rocky 3, where they even talk about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I thought was cool. But yeah, we have like Hulk Hogan versus Rocky, and then or Thunder Lips, I should say. And things like that. I'm like, okay, I remember that guy on TV when I was a kid, and thinking, oh, he must be like super cool or whatever. And then we found out later on, of course, he is super cool with his videos that came out later on. Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Okay.
We're talking about old Hulk Hogan. This is before he was weird and racist.
Well, even as some of the things we learn in this, like, unfortunately, a lot of that is time period thing. And
sure,
it's the way people were, which is not, condoning it. It's not saying it's good.
Right.
But,
and also like where you're from and stuff. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they go and do a bit of, obviously Andre is from fucking rural France. Just gonna go on a limb and say there's not a lot of black people in rural France.
Yeah,
yeah. So I could be wrong. I mean, I don't think so.
Not at the time, at least.
It'd be like, hey, I'm from northern Scandinavia. I don't know many Mexicans. It was like, okay, probably makes sense. So I like to like went into some of that stuff where like, okay, he did have some prejudices or whatever, but because he did end up working with a lot of people over those years, he did eventually grow out of them, or
exactly.
or at least
see,
become on friendly terms with people that at first he might have been not okay with working with or whatever, or at least being like, oh, I'm fine working with you, but we're not like friends or whatever.
Yeah.
So, so I thought that was interesting that he actually showed some of the good and bad stuff. As far as just because everybody's got good and bad, right? You know, everybody.
Yeah.
No one's a saint. No one has. You know, if Twitter was around back then, I'm sure he would have said stupid things.
Yes, he would have been canceled by now too.
Yeah,
all of them.
Everybody. And so, you know, if everybody had an iPhone back then, they would have had, you know, oh, this guy sent pictures of their dick everywhere, and everything. So, you know, that's what would have happened, and they would have been canceled. But.
What you know, it is nice, like you said, to see the good and the bad, because you know they always say like, oh, you put your hero on a pedestal, and you don't like, you know, you kind of put out the bad side of things and only see the good in them. I think it's really good to see character flaws, because you can see how someone can grow as a person, or how like, oh man, I don't want to turn out like that, or you know, they hid their worst qualities and they really weren't that good of a person because things like that. You know,
who knows?
Who knows? I don't know, something about Jello pudding.
Jello jigglers.
There's something a little more in those.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I mean, it's good to see those things, because you want to learn someone's full character, because nobody's perfect. Nobody has.
What I'm hearing is you're saying, you know, you're glad Bill Cosby's out finally and he learned his lesson.
Yeah. Anyway.
So what I'm hearing you say is.
Anyway, Andre the Giant. So this comic was really cool. It came out in 2014, and it starts off with kind of like Hulk Hogan, like retelling.
Remembering. And this is like, okay, if you're going to start for me, if you're going to start a wrestling comic off, it better be with Hulk Hogan, because I'm like, okay, I know who that is.
I know who Hulk Hogan is.
I know who the Hulkster is, and, you know, I didn't know who anybody else was. I knew who he was, and I know who Andre the Giant is. Those are like the people I knew. So the fact that it starts off with like Hulk, you know, retelling things about like, oh yeah, I remember him and he did this and that, and I knew him really well, and we started off together when I was starting and that kind of thing, and like that whole it was a good introduction for me for this, and then to hear like they kind of as Hulk's telling it, he's like, some people didn't like him because they only knew him as like a jerk or whatever, but that's because like they came into his room. And I mean, you got to think, like, this is a man that the world is not built for. He's going to be mad most of the time. Yeah. I would imagine. Like, I am not 7'4", but I'm 6'2", and I'm, you know, airplanes suck. And, you know, if you talk to me on an airplane, they're like, "Why? Well, you can't get comfortable?" It's like, yeah, fuck off, right? Like, so I can only imagine, you know, the level he went through, just like, going into a hotel, especially living your life on the road. Being in a bus or whatever, like if people come in and, you know, just barge into his room or whatever, and they're like, hey, you want to? He's like, get the fuck out! I'm just trying to relax on this bed that says king size, but it's like half of my body or whatever, you know. So like I'm just trying to sleep on the ground, half on the ground or whatever. So it was interesting to think of it like that. Like this guy just, you know, most of the time he was uncomfortable all of his life.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it was interesting to see. So like. He like you were saying, he was born in France. He grew up on a rural farm.
In 1958.
Yeah, 1958. So, you know, he had definitely like a you know, this is life, you know, it's like slow, country moving, simple, not much to worry about as far as like, you know.
Yeah, your worries are what's going on the farm? Are we making enough food and money to support the farm or whatever, like things like that.
Exactly. So compared to like, you know, where he ended up is a huge, you know, worlds apart.
A celebrity, a worldwide celebrity everywhere.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's interesting because like growing up, like he definitely was always big, but like they all just assumed the only other person in his family like that that I remember is his grandfather. His grandfather was 7'8", and Andre.
Oh, really?
Andre didn't even get. Andre got to 7'4".
Right. Okay. So I didn't know. So he says in this, like when he's younger, someone asks like, "Is anyone else big in your family? Your mom and dad are not." And he's like, "My grandpa." But I thought it was like just an offhand remark, like to explain it. But I didn't know that he was actually big.
Yeah. So that's the only because like his folks were fairly average height. His brother and sister were, like everybody else was. So his grandfather is where he got the gene for his gigantism.
Okay.
And he
Is that what he had? I mean, it was a pituitary thing, right?
So it partially was that, but also partially, he had I forget how you pronounce it.
It's
like agioism or
something like that.
Something like that. I apologize. I don't not remember the specific term. But yeah, so he had a tumor in his brain that wasn't one that was necessarily, like a cancerous tumor, but it was pushing on his pituitary, which caused him to constantly put out those growth hormones. And that is why, he literally
was big boned.
Yeah, he literally did not stop growing. Unfortunately, people with those conditions, they don't live as long.
Right.
Like you're saying, you think
like
about
a great day.
Think about having growing pains like you had in your teens for your entire life. And specifically, you think about the joints that, as you grow as, a teen into adult, what joints do you start feeling, hurt really bad? Just your normal self. You start getting some lower back pain, maybe your knees hurt a little, your hands. So extrapolate that for this 7'4",
right,
at his height, over 500-pound man.
Yeah,
he was in constant pain.
Yeah,
all of the time,
is crazy.
Which kind of explains kind of the things that we'll see throughout this story.
One thing about this story is they don't talk about whether they talk about his pain later on, right? But a lot of that I'm sure was from wrestling and everything too.
That too.
They don't really go. It seemed like when he was younger, he was fairly just like a large person, and the only discomfort was things aren't made for me. Yeah. So he can't fit on the school bus. He's got to take a second truck that someone has to bring by to deliver him to school, basically, because he can sit in the bed of the truck or whatever. Yeah. So, but yeah, but they don't really go into in this comic whether he had pain earlier than
not really. That really was more on set, especially after working with the wrestling, from my understanding of it. The being young, that I think the interesting thing was, like you were saying, with the truck that would come to pick him up and whatnot. Andre was uncomfortable enough with his situation when he was young that he thought I'm just going to be a farmer anyway. So he actually quit school.
Right.
Was around 8th grade or something.
Which is what I would do if I was that giant.
Yeah.
I'd be hey, I can make money.
Yeah.
Lots of different ways. I don't need to go to school for this.
But his dad was friends with, was it Mr. Beckett? Who's a Nobel Prize winner.
Oh, okay.
Something. So I think it was in mathematics. And that's actually what Andre excelled in. That was one of his big things. He's a very smart man, actually. And so they got him to kind of refocus and go back to school. And so that's kind of why he was personally picking him up and taking him to school and kind of refocusing him to now you want to educate yourself. It's not just about even if you're gonna do this for your life,
you want to know how to add and do normal. You want to know enough about the world so that you're not just a dumb.
Exactly. And I'm sure that they didn't want it, to be them to be the dumb giant guy,
right,
too. So yeah,
I'm sure that was something you had to overcome. When you're a big person, you're just kind of assumed you're dumb, and you're slow, or you're
yeah. There's a lot of those horrible stereotypes, and that's one thing they kind of mentioned this too, is that a lot of times as he got older, people may cheer in a crowd or during match stuff, but there's a lot of times where he's on his own, or he's out with some friends, or like you said, on a plane or waiting for stuff, and people who aren't necessarily big fans of wrestling, people they look at him and they'll be like, oh man, that guy's a freak, look how tall he is, what a weirdo, or actually horrible things.
I would just be like, holy shit. And one thing that they went into this, I was like, I don't understand this at all, is apparently people would always want to pick fights with him because they're like, he's a fake wrestler. And I'm like, no, but he's also 7'4". Extrapolate your strength, dude, who was 5'8" or whatever, and then times that by double or triple, and that's what he has. So why would you think you could, if his fist is as big as your face and he hits you,
it's your whole face.
Going to hurt a lot and probably knock you out, possibly kill you. So I don't understand the people would just come up to him and try to fight him or whatever. Usually with drinks involved, that might have had something to do with it. But I would just be like, holy fucking shit. I'd be like, hey man, you you want a beer on me, and we can be friends, and you can protect me because I'm your little pal, whatever, you know. I'm his little pal who's 6'2", and then we got another guy who's gonna be shorter, and little Lenny or whatever, and
and he's just having
he'll 5'4" or whatever, and yeah, I'll protect him, and he'll protect me. That's how it goes. But yeah, like just that idea that people would, and I guess because it's also a different time too. Like people were, I think, more cruel back in the day, or at least either that or they just didn't know people could hear you from certain distances or whatever. You know,
they weren't good.
Like you don't literally have to point.
Talk.
You know, yeah, you don't literally have to point and be like, "What the fuck is wrong with that guy?" You know, it's like people just were okay doing that kind of stuff back in the day more. I think I don't know why, but you know, for all their politeness they're supposed to have in the 50s or whatever, manners and shit.
Yeah, people
supposedly we've lost over the years.
People didn't have as much. I honestly feel like people didn't have as much of a filter then, or like.
I say that, but then Twitter and stuff. So
yeah, I don't know.
In person. The in person thing is what gets me crazy. Yeah. I'm like, I get it. People saying it on the internet or in their car or whatever, but like in person to a giant man's face to go like, "Hey, you fucking loser! I saw you lose that wrestling match. You fucking phony."
Yeah, I could. I
bet I could beat you up. It's like what? Like that doesn't make sense to me at all. So. I thought that was interesting. Like in his life, he had to deal with idiots like that a lot, and just people challenging him. Much like, I think, like I've heard like MMA guys get this. They're at a bar, like Chuck Liddell would be like at a bar in the mid 2000s, and people be like, "Do you want to go?" And he's like, "I'm Chuck Liddell.
Are you
I will kill you." I'm like other people I know have been like, or not that I know personally, but I mean that I know have heard stories of. That were like MMA fighters, they get like, was it BJ Penn? He would get fights all the time in Hawaii. And like, it's like, I'm BJ Penn. Like, I am one of the best and like most celebrated mixed martial artists of all time. And you think you can fight me? Like, I don't understand that. But that maybe it's a different mindset or whatever.
You hear a lot of those stories, and I mean, there is a common theme of like, usually I was at a bar when I saw it.
Yes, I think that's
there really has to be a part, a lot of it.
Yeah,
people already have maybe a big head sometimes if they think they're tough, and then that little bit of, taking away those ambitions and being like, yeah, I really bet I could F him up.
Maybe in my mind, because like, I could see that maybe with like Jackie Chan or something, because it's like he's an actor, he does his own stunts, but like, it's acting, right? So you're like, does he really know the martial arts? Like he does, like in the movies, and then. He's smaller, so you're like, okay, maybe I could take this guy or whatever. So I would get it if it was someone like that. But someone who's 7'4", I would never even think to do anything like that. Or someone who's an actual, like MMA is literal fighting. So it's like, if you don't do that they do it for a living. I couldn't imagine someone thinking they could beat someone, doing anything they do for a living, right? Like,
yeah.
But I bet I could do HVAC shit, man. And I'm like, oh yeah? Let's do it, like go get your gauges or whatever. It's like, oh, I need stuff. Oh, yeah, okay, I don't know how to do anything. It's like, yeah, because I do this for a living. Why would you think that guy doesn't do it? Same thing. So anyway, a little bit off topic, but still,
yeah, no,
it's crazy that people think that they could do anything like to this guy.
Yeah,
he's literally picking up cars in multiple scenes in this book.
Yeah, I mean they're talking about some of the odd jobs he did beforehand, and like when he's like helping deliver like. Refrigerator. He picks up a refrigerator on his own.
A full refrigerator. They're like, bring it up to the 5th floor. He's like, no problem.
Yeah, just puts it on his shoulder and weasel it through the door. Or
the
whatever.
The whole time in this, by the way, reading this comic, I just heard the voice of him in like Princess Bride. Anybody want the peanuts? It's like, yeah. So like, I just remember, I that was one of the things when I was a kid. His voice is so deep. I'm surprised they didn't say anything about that, but like people having a hard time understanding him because. Hearing someone with a voice that deep is so rare that like understanding what they say too is like also a hard thing. Like I had a hard time when I was a kid understanding what he was saying.
Oh yeah, especially because when you think
that frequency is so low.
Yeah, and then you think about too. He was born in France, so he spoke fluent French.
Yeah,
and so going from French to English, and then hearing that little bit of a French draw behind all of those words.
Right.
I'm talking that deep. Like you could totally there were. If you go back and listen to yeah, like you said, even in the Princess Bride, like sometimes it's like what?
Yeah.
Like if you're not paying close attention
right.
to it.
Yeah. And so that, I mean, I could only imagine that also being in America too, especially back then. Once again, back then, I'm sure people were like, "What the fuck are you saying?
What are you saying, Frenchie?
Yeah, you sound stupid or whatever." So yeah, but like I said, most of the time in these early years, he was doing odd jobs around town, picking up fridges for people and delivering that kind of stuff. They also, like I said, he also like will just stop and help people out and like pick their car up if they have a flat tire.
Yeah.
I'm like, pick up a car, huh? Like thousands of pounds of metal and steel, especially back then. A 70s car is different
an all metal
than a fucking
car.
Honda Civic nowadays or whatever.
Carbon fiber.
Yeah, whatever the fuck they are made of, plastic cars now.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty interesting.
I like that you kind of saw like it kind of showed not only the things that he went through, like just in his career wise, but also like his personal life, like him showing him like trying to like woo and date girls was kind of like he had to find something really common, really easy to get in there on some of those things. Otherwise, like
I don't know. I feel like he should have had an easier time. Like I feel like that's a conversation starter for any girl automatically. Like,
wow,
what's up? And then they turn around, and you're like, holy shit! Like, who the fuck is this guy? And then I'm dull, but it all matches or whatever. Like just kind of whatever you get. There was definitely lines if he's smooth enough that you could just start conversations with girls. I would think to get that out there, but. That's actually how his wrestling career started. Was he was talking to someone who ended up being a prostitute, right? She was like, was she a prostitute or she was?
No, I think she just worked at the diner
on
time, but also
I thought that she was because she said I work the diner and I also work the wrestling stuff, and I thought that she meant like work them.
Oh no! I think that she was meaning like she helped with some of the promotions.
Oh, okay, then I misunderstood that. My bad. That's my bad.
Yeah. Well, she was like, "You're so big, I bet you could do some of this." And actually, enough when he was in high school, the only thing that he really excelled at other than mathematics, like that he got into, was sports. And in particular, he was like he ended up going on to the wrestling team because like someone who was on it had got hurt, and they were like, "Hey, you're really big. I bet this is something that you would excel at."
All you gotta do is catch someone and like sit on them.
Yeah, and sure enough, like he took to it, with grace and ease for as big of a man as he was.
Right.
And and so that was something he was able to start doing. And his first wrestling name was John Ferre.
Is that how you say it?
Jean Ferre. Yeah.
It doesn't sound as imposing.
It's nowhere as elegant with my English, my beautiful American accent.
Yes. No, they have an accent, not us, John.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's right. We don't have accents.
Yeah. We're the world standard. So, but yeah, so he started off, with his small wrestling career going on in France.
But it didn't take long, obviously, as far as notice. Like, as this big man became a very easily like seen attraction pretty much right away. And again, like this is kind of where we start seeing people are like, "Oh, I saw you at the match. Like that wrestling's fake, though. I could beat the crap out of you."
Yeah.
Like in a bar again, when this guy like he's been at the bar all night. This is kind of where you start to see like he definitely is a little bit of a, I don't want to say partier, but like a drinker. Like he likes to have a good time.
And also because he's so big, I don't even know if he got buzzed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much alcohol you have to drink.
With some of the stories that we'll get to, who knows how much it took.
But how much did he feel it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I get I just keep drinking until I maybe get a little buzz, but that means 15 beers in, I'm like slightly. Yeah. I slightly have I'm feeling it a little bit, So that's it. I always wanted to know like how much, and they even say like his bar tab on one of them for Princess Bride was $40,000 one night.
Yeah.
Bar tab.
Yeah, and that supposedly, that's like it was like 100, and he drank like 130 beers in like 6 hours, and he had like 9 cases of wine and like 40 double vodka tonics. And just
doing everything.
Yeah, that was the one thing. And again, like
go big or go home.
I mean, we tend to think part of it had to be, especially as he got older, maybe hopefully numbing the pain, but also
self-medicating.
What at what point was he actually like getting and feeling that buzz, having to get that alcohol through that, into the blood and the entire body.
Well, and the more you drink, the more you get, kind of used to it or whatever.
That too,
so
yeah.
then you got to drink more to feel it, and it's a feeding.
And being in France, and they kind of mentioned that a little bit too. Like he kind of got a taste for fine wine at a younger age, around 12. Like he was offered, and smoking too. Yeah,
but back then
we just assume everybody in France.
It's fine. Smoking's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, everywhere. Yeah, it's true. Smoking is good for you. It cures cancer.
If it's good enough for Wolverine, it's good enough for me. All right, bub? That's what I said when I was 5. So, but what I just thought? I just realized, we were talking about him flipping over cars, and I was like, wow, it's 70s cars. But also you have to take away from that because they were French 70s cars.
So tinier.
Smaller, whatever that means. I don't know, French built. I don't know.
Wow.
Do you know of any French cars, John?
No.
Yeah, they don't sell them in America. I wonder why. Right. Anyway.
So yeah, like it shows him like people getting rough within the bar, and then like they're like, oh, well, whatever. Then they try to take it outside, and he's like, okay, yeah, you guys, why don't you get up and go? And then like we'll flip their car.
He flipped the car over
while they're in it
in this book. I don't know if that's real. I would assume it is.
Yeah, no, that's one of
the fact that you could pick up a car and flip it over it doesn't matter. I mean, unless it's the Hot Wheels, is fucking crazy. So that is a man I would not want to fuck with. But,
yeah.
But yeah, so then he gets his first like trip to Japan,
mm-hmm.
which those people love fucking wrestling, and they love giant people from elsewhere.
Yeah, basically already at the time, like the like model of a big wrestler is like probably like a 6'2" to 6'5" guy, 350 pounds, all that old school muscle where it's like you're kind of like large shapes. Not necessarily like what we think of as definition and like buff today,
right?
But very much like you can see every muscle in your body is one big like pound of strength.
You're like a rock or something, like a big bag of sand.
Big bag of sand. That's pretty.
It's hard. It's hard to move. It's just heavy, solid thing or whatever. So,
exactly.
And yeah, but specifically in Japan, I mean, I know for a fact because of MMA has a history with this too of going over there, and like you get people like Bob Sapp, who's like 350 pounds, gigantic African American dude. They love it. They're like, kill all of our tiny, Asian guys or whatever, or let's see what our Asian guys can do against this giant guy. They like that spectacle of the giant versus our best or whatever, kind of thing.
And that's basically like as soon as he got over there, he started selling out places once the word started getting out. Because they would throw him in these little matches where it's him versus like 2 or 3 people, and then it's basically a squash, or where it's like they can't do anything to actually harm him.
Right.
Whether the wrestling obviously.
Whoever was supposed to win will win or whatever, but like
there's obviously that showmanship to it. There's the art to it, the fake fighting as far as like the combativeness of it, to where you pull and you work certain things, but still like they definitely put it up to the max against him, is because he would get in matches with like I said, a couple people there. He would a match he's very well known for would be a battle royale where it would be him versus like 5 to 10 other people in the ring, and he would dominate all of them.
Right. And it's like one guy on his leg, the other guy on his other leg, grab him from the waist and just like knocks them all over. And
yeah, it took a long time for his kind of like stature to be not diminished, but like to be taken down any notch. Like he was built up for a while so high, like nobody had ever knocked him down, nobody had ever pinned him.
Right.
Like it was pretty much like the unstoppable force.
Right. Well, and so back to him being in Japan is where he actually gets his first like diagnosis of, hey, you're not just a big guy. This is actually like a disease that you need to think about. Or whatever. So, because the Japanese doctor's like, we need to do our checkup on you before you go fight. And he's like, what do you mean? I've never been to a doctor. And they're like, what? He's like, I'm from rural France. Like, unless you're sick, you don't go to the doctor or whatever. So, this is where he finds out he has, I think it's called Acromegaly.
Acromegaly?
Yeah, acromegaly.
Okay. That was the one I was trying to remember.
Which is that's what you were saying. Is just basically he just continuously releases growth hormone, and the doctor tells him, you're probably gonna age prematurely. You're gonna probably not make it past 40. Your brow and your jaw will grow out bigger than everything, and your organs won't be able to keep up with the size of your body. So, like, your heart will eventually give out, and all of your joints are going to be in enormous pain.
So lots of good news.
Yeah. So to find that out when you're like, 19, 20 or whatever the fuck this was. Like,
yeah, it's pretty.
Basically, you've already lived half your life. Have fun.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
And yeah,
but also you're cleared to fight today. I love that. Like, hey, you have a very serious illness, but congratulations.
Good luck tonight.
Yeah, you're good luck. You're fighting two of our best or whatever. So, yeah, it was just interesting that he'd never seen a doctor or anything, and then until he gets to Japan. So then he learns that, but he just rolls with it. Like, I mean, I guess because he's always gone through life, just this is what it is. Like, he hears the news and he's like, they're like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "I'm fine. Let's just do this thing or whatever." So
pretty much, like, because I think at this point he's pretty much like, okay, like I guess I understand that, but like I'm enjoying this and I'm going to continue. Let's just put on a good show and let things happen as they happen.
Yeah. And one thing that was funny about this is, like I said, plane rides for me are not fun. Plane rides for this guy, I can't even imagine, especially back in the day or whatever.
Yeah.
They talk about him. He had to evacuate everything, like, before he went on a plane because there's no way he's getting in the bathroom.
Oh yeah,
or using the bathroom.
He's definitely taking up at least 2 seats.
Yeah. He always has to get 2 seats, and it's just like. Never fun. I don't know what legroom wise back then might have been better than now. Like, I think they had more.
They had more. Yeah, they weren't squeezing as much, but still, like,
yeah,
maybe for you it would be a little bit better, but for him,
for him,
still.
no, I'm sure it wouldn't have been good. And at least you could smoke and stuff on planes back then. Took a little of the edge off.
Just a little bit.
Smoking or not smoking. So yeah, then finally, after this. After this Japanese tour, he actually gets to go to America and fight, some wrestling matches there, and that's where he starts making this big money. Starts selling 20,000 tickets, a night at these places, and it's funny because he does it so often that basically he kind of wears his welcome out, where people are like, well, I mean, why go see him? He's there every night, and then also
he always
wins. Yeah, he never loses. So what's the point? I can just go see a movie and. Get some different entertainment kind of thing. So that's where the big cheese comes in.
Yeah, Vince McMahon Sr.
So you might know who Vince McMahon is. This is the only other wrestler personality I know.
Yeah.
He's basically the Donald Trump of wrestling.
Pretty much.
And this is his dad. So that originally got.
Yeah, but I mean, this is like that family definitely is for all the stuff that we know now and some of the bad stuff behind it definitely had a mind for
business
and where they're going to take this and make this into a real must see show.
Yeah.
And that's what Andre became, is that they turned him. They're like, okay, we're going to take this spotlight away from this and you're going to become an attraction and you're going to.
But one thing I liked is it's not like a freak though. It wasn't like, look at the freak giant attraction. It was like, no. This guy is the craziest wrestler, and that's why, because he's so big and everything. But it's not yes, his size is obviously a part of it, but it wasn't like they're exploiting him, and I like that. It never felt like he was exploited which back in the day, I mean, before this time, really that's what would have happened.
Oh yeah, it would have been come see the gigantic,
come see the gigantic freak boy or whatever, and watch him lift ladies above his head, and
And that's one of the things too. Before Vince McMahon Sr. got in, is he was wrestling a lot more because he had that background and he was able to do it well. So was he not only doing Olympic style wrestling, he also could do a lot of the moves that you wouldn't think a big guy could do. He was doing drop kicks where, he'd jump off. This 7'4" man jumps off his feet, kicks you in the face with his 22-inch size shoe. That is insane. Or that's jumping off the actual ropes and stuff.
If I was in the ring with him, I'd be like, I gotta trust him so much.
Oh my God, please don't slip.
Please don't murder me tonight.
Yeah, please do not crush my face.
We all know I'm supposed to win this, but if I could also not be paralyzed afterwards, that'd be great. We're you're yeah, he doesn't move, and then you just you paralyze the guy that was supposed to win, so you just throw him on top of you, and you're he pinned me. He's pinning Andre. Look at that.
He did it. Yeah, and then you do some other story.
And then they wheelchair him out of the thing. He won. Everybody, look at that.
So that was kind of nice too, because obviously, I think it also was good for him as far as like not having him work as hard on his body, but two, also kind of gave him that like allure of like, oh man, like this, like he is going to become like a stone in the ring and like
instead of moving around so much, they're like, no, you're just unmovable.
Yeah.
You're just so big that a man is not. There's no man that can move you.
Yeah,
kind of
like
thing.
and when you do offense, like it is going to be the most powerful offenses. Like you're gonna punch a guy, and he is gonna like fly back. Like
right.
Everything is
They're
gonna
sell it. They're gonna sell it so good, like they just got punched by Zeus or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's when he gets really, really big. Obviously, everybody's like, "Oh, we love Giant," and every place he gets now, he's selling like 60,000 seats, and real places. So I always wondered about how much money did he actually make? Because like, obviously, if you're that big, everything has to be custom. So you're spending a lot of money on, what you're wearing and all that stuff, your cars and all those things, but also like everywhere you go, your bill for things because he was a partier is also a lot. So like, and then also Vince McMahon's going to take his cut, right? And they even say that in here. He's like, oh, and I'll take a small fee of 40% or whatever, whatever it was. And so like, yes, he's selling out like 60,000 seat arenas, but how much of that is actually going to him? And I hope that he was actually getting like a good.
Well, that's one of the things that I was reading on is that he definitely he was one of the first ones I would say that really kind of became like a millionaire's wrestler.
Okay,
like he actually
that's good to know.
Got paid for what he was worth.
I would hope
down the line.
I would hope everybody kind of shows that like I don't know how much Hulk Hogan actually made, but I would I'd hope he made enough back in the day that if Andre was around, he didn't have to live. He could retire or whatever.
Yeah,
not have to work again. Like, because they tear up their body so much, and especially someone like Andre.
Oh yeah,
how much medical bills did he have and all that stuff?
And you got to think about being on the road, like you got hotels, you got food everywhere. Like,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, do they have to pay for that? Are they independent contractors? Like,
oh yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, so all that stuff is coming out of your pocket, not Vince McMahon's.
That's right.
And so, I hope that he. And it sounds like he made enough money to even pay for all that stuff and still have enough to live a good life.
For what it's worth, I think like at least the top stars definitely got enough to be okay on or to flourish. Like that's definitely something.
He's like the Conor McGregor or something.
Yeah, and that's definitely something we've heard through interviews with other wrestlers over the years now that we learned that like it took a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears for some of them to be able to get to these kind of levels as far as like to get that reasonable compensation because you think these guys are putting their bodies on the line and like, what are they getting to show for it? Especially especially we're at the time because all that wrestling was in territories of different places across America.
Right.
So like it wasn't as big a conglomerate, obviously with some of the companies now to where they're making some of the money that they could make now. So trying to attract and pull people around or have them tour and go to these different places, like you got to work out all those deals everywhere, and sometimes it could be good, and sometimes
right. Every place is different.
Exactly. So
one story that I was actually like, holy shit, was this? There's a story in here about him going to a bar in Texas, I think.
Yeah,
and I'm surprised he did not get shot, honestly, because like I mean. They're like, basically, he goes to a bar and he's like, man, it's hot in Texas. And he opens his shirt, like he unbuttons his shirt because it's hot. And the guy's like, hey, you can't drink in here with your shirt open like that. And he's like, fuck you, basically. I'm gigantic. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm going to keep drinking.
Yeah, and so he just keeps drinking. And then the guy calls the police on him. And the sheriff shows up and is like, hey, put your shirt on or get out of here. And he didn't do either. And then he called for backup. And they're like, what am I supposed to do? I can't put handcuffs on him. And instead of just drawing and shooting, like, I don't know, we see so many police do nowadays, they just were like, you know what? You're not hurting anybody. Let's just let this one go today, guys. Like, because, I don't want to be killing people for, not buttoning their shirt.
Yep.
Might be a lesson there. We could teach something.
Yeah, he pretty much wore out their like process of like trying to figure out how they were.
Also, he was buying the beer too. So
yeah.
If I was that guy, I'd be like, please continue drinking, sir. as long as you were paying for it, I do not give a fuck what you wear because you just paid for my daughter's college or whatever, because you just spent $40,000 tonight on this bar tab. So yeah, I am just surprised that didn't go because it's Texas too, and back in the day.
Yeah,
and also he sounds funny. He's from out of town, obviously. There's just things that aren't on his side in Texas
that you would think,
then.
yeah, for sure.
And this is not like, Austin or whatever. It's some place in the middle of nowhere, I'm assuming. So I was surprised and happy that it did not go that way. And then the other thing that happened in this, which I didn't know they were going to reference, is, so like I said, my only reference for wrestling is like Rocky 3 and Hulk Hogan in general. And in Rocky 3, Hulk Hogan fights Rocky in like a staged match.
Yeah.
Where
the best boxer is going to fight the best wrestler. Who will come out on top?
Who will win? And like Rocky doesn't really take it seriously. And then like, I guess Hulk gets a little too into it for what Rocky thinks. And then they end up going crazy. And then like Hulk's like, at the end, he's like, good job selling it, brother, or whatever, But like at the time, you thought they hated each other the way Rocky did, at least.
Yeah.
And so basically that was a recreation, or like almost shot for shot recreation, according to this comic, of the event that happened 10 years earlier with Andre the Giant and this guy named Chuck Wepner, who was the inspiration for Rocky, because he went all 12 rounds with
Muhammad Ali.
Was it 12 rounds? He went all the rounds. I guess it was 18 or 16 back then. I don't know. They have different.
But he went the distance.
There's only 12 now.
Ali.
There was 16, I think, back then, or maybe longer. But yeah, he went all 12 rounds with Muhammad Ali, and this guy didn't, he wasn't a known name or whatever. So he was the inspiration for Rocky. So they did that little homage to them in Rocky 3, which I thought was cool. And so this whole thing, I was like, oh, that was cool to learn. I didn't know that. And yeah, I'm a big sucker for like little things in history about that. There's even Don King is even in this.
Yeah.
Who I know, just from boxing, he's Tyson's manager and stuff. So I thought that was cool. So it was just a little the crossover of wrestling and I guess what would it be called? Boxing, or just like, I want to say real fighting.
Well, no, that was the point of it. That was literally the point, was to kind of help legitimize wrestling as like a real quote unquote sport,
right?
Even though
at least get people
to get it to more of a mainstream audience, because they're trying to break in and be like as big as boxing, or big as some of these other sports now. So
right, yeah, and so it kind of legitimizes it or whatnot. So, but yeah, I like that they did it like, and the way that they show Hulk Hogan. I don't know how big Hulk Hogan is in real life. Was he like
6'5"?
6'5"? So he is pretty big. But like Stallone looks tiny compared to him. Yeah. In that ring. So it played it well. It was like a good, like the way that they looked probably was the way that they looked, except even more so. But like, when I was a kid, I was like, he's gigantic. Like, so I thought that was fun.
I'm sure. I mean, at that point, that's pretty much like Andre's prime. I love his look at the time, because he's got like a big bushy afro that's like, 3 times the size of his already gigantic head. He wears he's wearing trunks at that point, his big wrestling boots, and then like he's like 7'4", 7'5", 460 some pounds, like kind of like the prime shape of him before anything goes, anything really starts to, I would really go downhill as far as his health wise. Yeah. So like it was like it was a really cool, like brawlish big dude look, and it was fun. I always really enjoyed that.
Yes. One thing they don't talk about his love life too much in this book. Like we said, there was that one time where he was like chatting up the girl who ended up bringing him into wrestling.
Yeah, they only show like him being alone a lot. Like he'll drink with people, and then eventually
he's the only one drinking.
He's the only one drinking because of how much he's drunk. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, we'll see you later. Like, and so he's alone a lot, and that's kind of the only point that they make until this.
Right, and so like he actually, he hears a French girl one day at like a casino, and he's like, "Oh, bonjour!" Like he's like he's chatting her up, and then later on he actually goes and meets her again and meets up with her, and they have a good time that night. But then like we do find out that he actually has a daughter later on, and that's why I was like, was it that lady? But apparently it's some other lady.
No, it was someone else throughout that he had met. He had a daughter. He wasn't very much into her as far as her life, because this was his life.
Right. Yeah. How's he going to be part of her life if he's traveling all the time?
Yeah. Anyways. Like, I mean, he's on the road 360 days a year.
John, there's only 352 days a year.
52. I was no 365.
I don't know.
It's 365. Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. Is that I was like,
don't know,
he
John.
took it's 365.
John, there's only 300 days in a year.
Whatever. You're trying to mess with me. But yeah, so like he had a daughter with someone, and but he only saw her a couple times.
Well, and also he's like, at the time, it's like, is she my daughter?
Yeah.
I saw you once.
Yeah, are you sure?
And then this is the first time you're calling me about this, and I just happen to be a millionaire, big wrestler or whatever, So like, of course, in the 70s, there's no way to prove that. So then later on, they actually do prove it with a DNA test.
DNA test, yeah.
But that was in the 90s, so
yeah, he's.
I hope that because of that, she actually got some of that money that he had, whatever was left over.
I think part of towards the end, I think that was part of it because they were able to legitimize it.
Yeah. But yeah, and then like this is kind of like the latter half after that wrestling match of his career is him going to Japan again and stuff. And this is where you see like, okay, like he had some things in his life that we're not so proud of, like his obviously this relationship with his daughter that was estranged, and he would deny her and stuff. He only saw her like 5 times in her life before a certain time.
Yeah,
and then apparently he had some kind of prejudice against African American or black people, and so there was a wrestler named Bad News Brown that he would travel with. And apparently, I don't know what I don't know.
Basically,
what he was saying.
he said he was a big like joker. He loved telling jokes, but he told a lot of racist jokes too.
Right.
And at this time,
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah. So he was telling.
I wasn't sure what he was talking about. He just says the N word.
The N word.
This guy hears it, and he's like, "Hey,
don't use that.
Yeah, don't use that around me." And then he's like, "Hey, go fuck yourself."
Whatever. Yeah. F off. And Bad News Brown gets pissed off, and they like pull the touring bus over. He's like, "Let's step outside and do this." And Andre's like, "No, I ain't got time for that."
Yeah.
And they're also like, he's drunk. That's part of it too. They're trying to like calm Bad News Brown down. And then he sees him later. He talks to him like, I think the next morning. And he's like, "Hey man, like, are we still going to fight? Are you still going to like be prejudiced towards me?" And this is kind of one of those things where Andre blows it off as like, "Hey, like I told Polish jokes too. I'm from that area. My family is Polish and French. So like, don't let it bother you, whatnot. Like, we're cool, man." And he's like, "Whatever, no, like I don't accept that." There was a lot of
there's tension.
Yeah,
but eventually they do make up and say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, I was like that. I'm not like that anymore."
No, and that's one thing, and that's one thing to take from it is that specifically Andre and Bad News Brown like buried the hatchet, and Andre realized he was like, "I said some racist things in the past that I'm not proud of, but I am not that way anymore."
Right.
So that it's good to that he did it. Overcome some of those things, but one of the big things as he got older, as he was again probably self-medicating a bit, and then probably having a tolerance for it, was drinking a lot more.
A lot.
Yeah, and in particular, they go into one party that he was here. He was at a party for someone's birthday, and he gets into a fight with Bill Jack Mulligan, and this is a big dude too. He's like.
Yeah, it says Bill Jack was like 6'7" or something, so he's tall for a average human or whatever, right? But then like he on paper he looks normal to like a normal person to Andre. So in that
aspect,
yeah, exactly. In that proportions or whatever.
it's it's different. They tries to catch Andre off guard, and like he actually gets like a hit in on him, but Andre is like. Does not let it go, and
and they kind of they like break this room apart.
They wreck part of this hotel that they
break the glass.
They're staying at for this friend's birthday.
This is where I was saying, man, if he did this like everywhere he went, like I wonder what those bills were like. And did he
who paid for
money?
This bill?
That's what I'm saying. Like if Vince McMahon ain't paying for this, then he's paying for the window. And I know how much windows cost on buildings. So it's not exactly a cheap affair when you break through the whole. It's not a sliding glass door. It is a window that doesn't open or close. So it's like, a pane of glass or whatever that's gigantic. So these are the things that I'm like, wow, who's paying for all this stuff? And, hopefully he didn't lose all his money for that kind of thing. So, but even when he got in a fight, it's like the next morning. Hey man, I'm sorry.
I was drinking. I'm sorry. Oh, bah.
And they're like, fine, I guess so. It's like no problem. That's just you. Ease off the booze, maybe next time.
And this is kind of where we start to see like he's taking kind of like breaks in between wrestling. Like he basically gets his own ranch farm.
Yeah, in North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina. Yeah. And that's kind of like his happy place to like trying to calm it down and rest his body from, all the trauma he's putting it through wrestling as he's, also getting older. And we kind of see more of like his, what, we would call like his jokiness, like, especially in wrestling, they with either newer people or if they're people that are like, kind of like not in trouble, but like kind of like looked down upon in the back, like they will pull like pranks on them, though, quote unquote, to like make an example of them during matches and things. Either like they'll won't pull punches, they'll actually like chop someone really hard, which is where they slap you across the chest, but they'll like do it with like, instead of a cupped hand, a full flat hand, so you feel it, and like you actually are like, hey, like motherfucker, you're like, you make sure that you're in line and doing what you need to be doing,
right?
Or if someone is like wrestling like that and they're trying to get them to be more careful, they will won't pull punches, and they'll actually like hurt him a little bit to like be like, hey, in the future here, you need to learn your place and learn how to do this.
Ship up or shape out.
And so one of the guys,
it's like in Full Metal Jacket when they hit him with the soap.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of a good way. It's definitely, I would say, a hazing.
A little less hazing than that, but
so he's in a tag team match, and the one guy they pull him down, and it was the one man gang. He came off as like a hardcore character, but
yeah, he was like, he didn't drink, right?
The one thing the crowd didn't know is like, even though he pulled off as a hardcore guy, he wasn't like a drinker or anything, and they like held him down and they like shoved beer down his throat, and the crowd of course is like loving it and like they're all laughing at it, but he's like motherfucker, yeah,
yeah, and this was like kind of interesting. I like the way they show this because. So his body's obviously starting to break down. He's getting older. I mean, it's been like, 10 or 15 years now. So he's getting close to the age of 40, which he was told he won't live past. Yeah. So he wakes up one day and he's like, better get up. And he like tries to stand up and his ankle just snaps.
He literally snaps his ankle getting out of bed.
But the way they show it, there's like no like, ow or anything. It's just snap. He's like, uh-oh. I can't walk, boss. Like my ankle's broke. I don't know what happened. There's like no pain or anything in his mind, apparently. Like the way that he just didn't feel it, but he like knew something was wrong, kind of thing. I thought was funny. They just like apparently he had very high tolerance of pain, which makes sense if he's a wrestler and he's got to do all that stuff all night or every night. But like, yeah, I just thought that was funny. And then the idea of him being like, he's like, yeah, they had to get a 9-foot, bed for the hospital for me, because I can't walk. So he had to take off time just for that kind of thing, just for being injured as his body started breaking down.
Yeah, and the cool thing is the interesting thing I would say at least is that they still like they put that in a story that was like he was supposed to wrestle like I think Kamala Khan or something, and they did a thing.
I thought you were gonna say Kamala Harris.
No, like at one of the venues, and like it was a quick like. They put him down. They're like, he fought. He whacked at him and like hurt his hand, probably broke his ankle. So like he's gonna be out for a while, but he'll get him when he comes back or whatever.
Yeah.
So
they played it up for the audience so that they knew.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, hey, where'd he go?
Yeah, where'd he go? Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, and then we also get like a story of a Karen in here. I thought was fun. Where there's like a mom who's mad that like we came to see you and you won't sign our thing or whatever, and he's like, "Fuck off, lady!" And like once again, he's just trying to have a meal, and now his fucking Karen's yelling at him or whatever.
And like this is kind of like this was something you see even more like even in celebrity in general is like people think that they owe them something because like I pay your I bought tickets to your thing, so like. I basically paid you, and it's like, you paid to see
and you saw
my event.
Show. Correct.
Yeah. So when I'm on my own time, can you not like hound me for stuff? Can I just enjoy my food or whatever?
Yeah. I liked the way that they, I like the way that they show like when he's just trying to fucking sit down at a table that's too small for him and have a meal that's, he's got to order 12 egg omelets because that's what that's what fills him up or whatever.
Yeah.
He orders 12 egg omelets, by the way, so 24 eggs. is what he eats for at a diner or whatever. And hopefully they have that and they'll make it for him and accommodate or whatever. In the meantime, he's got to get yelled at by this stupid, annoying person who thinks that they owe him extra or whatever. But yeah, basically they just kind of go through. Yes, he's starting to feel the effects. You're starting to see it in his body, like his face, his brows are getting more pronounced.
Yeah, he's definitely like he's looking more older than his age now, for sure.
Yes.
And one of the cool little things I thought, he went on David Letterman, and he like it was kind of like a real interview because like he's talking about the wrestling and how he's doing, but like he's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do afterwards? And also he's like, I've never really thought about that. You can kind of like see if you watch the interview too, it's really cool because you kind of like see him like not necessarily be prepared. He's like, oh wow, like I didn't even think of that because I've been told I'm not going to live past 40.
Yeah, basically I just thought I was going to wrestle till I die. And
then, and so people are kind of laughing at his like genuine honesty.
Well, I think because they think like, well, who doesn't think about what they're going to do when they retire? Because they don't know. No one at this time knows this is a death sentence for him, literally in a couple years or whatever. So, like, they're like, oh, that's funny. He doesn't even think about it or whatever. Like, he just loves to wrestle or whatever. That's funny. But they don't know that he's actually like, no, like, it's because I'm going to die in a couple years.
Yeah, that's true. They don't know that portion. So, but it's part of it. But he gets time off. They're going to rebrand him. He gets like a humiliation match to leave for a bit, and he like cut off his afro and stuff, and
he gets back surgery during this time.
Finally gets to have some back surgery for relief.
Yeah. So, and that's when, in this meantime, he's filming Princess Bride, and that's when he gets like probably his big introduction to that age group.
Yeah.
Like probably, I would imagine like the kids that are going to see Princess Bride didn't know who he was until they saw that, and then like probably their dads were like, "That's Andre the Giant." And they're like, "Whoa," and then that's why we get the big comeback, which is actually like his handing over of the mantle of baddest dude in wrestling or whatever. This is like probably because he was in Princess Bride, the kids who saw him in that were interested in wrestling, and then they're I want to watch him now, and then Hulk Hogan gets to be the guy that he passes like the baddest guy to.
Basically, yeah, Hulk Hogan has been kind of up and coming at this point while Andre's been taking all this time off. And so like Hulk Hogan is really going to get the rub to become like the next big guy. Andre and Vince McMahon Jr. have a talk at this point, and he's like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm ready to do this.
Yeah,
I'm good with passing like you said, passing the torch off to Hogan." And like this is definitely one of the like I love all the promos and all of the things that come into this with like Hulk. Andre is there like when Hulk first wins the first belts, and he's like, "Oh, you're so cool! Like, good job! I was champion at 1.2," and like they have like a good time, and they have like he showers him like with champagne and stuff. And it's really funny, and then like
every promo says, "Hey man, why don't you watch where you're going?" Yeah. Where's the next one? And then, "Hey, you think you're hot shit because you won the belt? Well, I'm taking it back."
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah, just escalate every time.
Yeah, and eventually he gets the one of the best heel, which is the bad guys managers, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and basically they have this one last big promo, which is like one of the best ones out there, and he like you said, he's like, "You think you're hot shit, but you're not. Like you may have been champion for all this time now, but like I was basically undefeated for like 15 years, so F off. I'm really the best." And he like
he sells
it so good, and he like obviously he again.
Well, they make in this comic they make it seem like Hulk was like, I don't know exactly if he's going to, like, he's supposed to lose and I'm supposed to win, but it seems like maybe he's not going to do that or something. Like, while in the comic it made it seem like maybe he was doubting how Andre was going to
he was going to pull it. Yeah.
So like, was he going to just kind of do what I said, where he actually Andre beats the shit out of him and then kind of throws Hulk on top of himself and goes, "Oh, you won," or whatever, or is it like, is he going to sell it? And he ends up selling it apparently really big, which is why Hulk Hogan ends up being Hulk Hogan for the next 15 years or whatever, the biggest star of all time or whatever.
Like it's March 29th, 1987, Pontiac Silverdome. one of the largest at the time, especially the largest indoor crowds, like over 90,000
Holy shit.
seats, sold out, and like they put on a like I don't want to say a clinic because they were definitely like I would say Macho Man and Ricky Dragon Steamboat's match at that was like a clinic on wrestling, but this is definitely one of, if not like the biggest matches of all time because it's like it's the two biggest names that you can think of at the time going head to head and who is going to come out. And this is really where Hulkamania is born.
Yeah, I like this. I don't know how the fuck this happened, but Hulk had to pick him up.
Yeah, and the first one,
slam him down.
The first one, like he tries to pick him up early in the match, and he's like, "Oh, my back!" And like then Andre is like wiping the floor with him by doing almost nothing, just like standing on him, like giving him bear hugs, like just pushing him down. And then
I like how they explained all the moves because I don't know all the moves. So he's giving him a bear hug, which is actually like a resting thing because he's Andre is fucking tired because he's older now.
Yeah,
he can't do quite as much as he used to do.
But it makes it look because it looks like he's squeezing the life out of him.
Yeah, but it's actually like a resting move, and then he would do something else that would be like big and explosive, and then he could like hug him again. And so I thought that was okay, cool. I liked how they explained the actual move, so we knew as a reader what's going on performatively for the wrestlers more than just what you would see on TV or whatever as a watcher or as a fan. And so so anyway, he at the end to build up the drama, like you said, he had to fake not being able to pick him up, but then at the end he had to actually pick him up and slam him on the ground.
And Andre can only help so much at his age too. So Hulk Hogan really
and his back was so fucked up in this. So he's like, you gotta be careful, but also we gotta sell it and everything. And then he did his leg drop on him, which I knew that move. That's the only move I knew
his
of.
Big atomic leg.
Yeah.
So he picks up Andre the Giant, body slams him, and he's pretty much the first person to do that, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that was like the big reason why
he slams him, and then he does his little finishing move, drops the leg, 1, 2, 3 count. And he is beaten like the biggest star of all time. And now, Hulkamania is thus born and like,
hell yeah, brother.
What you gonna do when these 35-inch pythons? You know? So I mean that was my like prime of wrestling too. Like I was a huge Hulk Hogan fan, and I liked Andre a lot too. But again, it was kind of I was growing up.
It was before your time, right?
Yeah. So I was growing up with Andre at that point. So
I think of it now like I know a little bit about who's who now. So there's like, from what I know, you correct me if I'm wrong on this, there's a guy that people don't like now called Roman Reigns, and they tried to pass the torch to him via The Rock. Is that correct? Or via someone else that they liked?
Kind of via John Cena, I would say.
And it didn't work out. Like it doesn't always work out when they try to pass this torch to whoever they think they're going to tell the fans they're going to be like
who they're going
to be. Thing. And then it's like, sometimes the fans reject it or whatever. So the fact that they took to it so much was probably the way that Andre sold it so much and built it up and everything. So
I will say, just for clarity for wrestling fans that are actually watching, Roman Reigns actually became a heel, and it became so natural that like now Roman Reigns is like actually like
now they like him.
Now like he actually is like legitimate.
Okay, well I'm just going by what I know.
You're talking from a couple years ago when I tried to get you back into wrestling.
Yes, when you made me watch.
And at the time Roman Reigns was being shoved down in our throats, and we were like, we're not ready for him. Like there's plenty of other wrestlers like we would prefer.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, Roman is doing good now. He's cool. I'm lightly getting back into it again a little bit more with CM Punk coming back. CM Punk All Elite. But anyway, he's one of my favorite wrestlers.
Yeah, he went to my favorite sport and lost.
Yes, we know he didn't do well. He tried. When
the outcomes weren't fixed.
Whatever.
Hey, you know how much Dana White would have loved it if he had won? And he could have milked that cow so long.
Oh yeah, for so long. Yeah, he gave him a shot.
Yeah.
He didn't live up to it, but you know what? He's the best.
I do give him credit
in the world. That's his name. He's the best in the world.
Oh,
but anyway.
Okay. I was like, he's the best wrestler. I was like, because MMA people wrestle, John.
No, I know. I'm saying he is one of the best. His moniker is best in the world.
I got you. I get it. I didn't realize I didn't know that. So.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, but So anyway, I liked that they told that little history because I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that, like how Hulk became Hulk and all that stuff. So, it was cool to learn that part for sure.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the book's kind of like, okay, his kind of downfall of just getting older.
Yeah.
Like, he's got to have canes and stuff to walk because his body's breaking down.
Yeah, he was. There were a couple times they were going to try to do a comeback kind of a thing, a bit like a last two. That's the only thing that really is sad about Andre the Giant stories. He never really got what a lot of, I would say, older wrestlers from then on going forward get, whereas like that.
They come back every now and then.
Yeah,
they get to.
There's a passing of the torch, which is, I would say, probably the most important thing, because that's definitely what this was. That definitely was the culmination in like what everybody takes from this going forward is like, you need to have a passing of the torch moment for like the great
new
wrestlers.
guys. Yeah.
But because this was like the first big one, Andre didn't get the send off that so many of those wrestlers that do the passing of the torch or do that last big hoorah get.
Gotcha.
Because he was supposed to come back for a big thing with Earthquake, was another big dude at the time. He had like he hurt his knee thing. And when he actually had to go out and have knee surgery to replace his knee. Yeah. And so he was supposed to come back for that. And that kind of didn't work out. Like he would get into things and he would be like in tag and like what they call the corner man. He's the guy, he's sitting in the corner for most of the match, and then he might get tagged in finally to do a big move or two to like finish and like send the crowd home happy kind of thing.
Right.
But that never really went to fruition. He did a little bit of touring in Japan when he got healthier again.
This is like, Japan will literally, because they respect them so much, they're like, even if you're old and you're like done or whatever, they'll still be like, because they respect the art so much of like the showmanship and the person, which I like that about Japan, is they respect it so much, that they don't just throw you away like American fans do.
Yeah, no, that's true.
They're like, no, he was a great man and we must watch him wrestle still, even though it might not be as fascinating as it was at one time or whatever. I appreciate that. But yeah, basically he got to go to Japan and kind of do some of his last wrestling there.
Yeah, he was supposed to come back one more time. It was 91. He was supposed to come back for the Royal Rumble. And that's like Andre's match is like the big match where you have like 20 guys come at you. But again, he got hurt, so he didn't get to go through that as well.
Right.
And unfortunately, like the only thing we really get from there is that we had the blood test, so he found out that his daughter was real.
Was his daughter.
Was his daughter. I'm sorry. Yeah, obviously she was real. My apologies. But yeah, I mean, and then from there was that he had these little appearances here and there, but he didn't really do too much more wrestling. And then unfortunately, his father died in like early January or mid January of '93, and so he was going back to Paris or France for his dad's funeral, and he died at the hotel.
I don't say, at least he died in his sleep.
Yeah.
It was basically like his heart's like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, in the middle of a match or
that's true.
Something that could have happened.
I know. I have to say, as many times as I've seen some older wrestlers get back in the ring as they've been older to have these send-offs or whatever, I'm always like, oh God, please don't die in the ring. Like, okay, so I love Ric Flair too. You know who Ric Flair is?
Woo!
Yeah. Like, I love seeing him, and I'm always down for a Ric Flair promo. And yeah, it's still great that he's out there, like, kind of like showing. He's not really wrestling, thank God. But like his last match, his send off match was amazing. He had one of those send off matches. He came back for one last run with Shawn Michaels, and that was the thing, is like his last match was one of those. It was in a big, huge WrestleMania crowd, and like he lost and gave the rub to Shawn Michaels to win, but like the crowd like chanted for him afterwards, and he got that like last big hurrah in the ring where they all said goodbye, right. quote unquote, to Ric Flair. Now, Ric Flair's still been around doing things.
Right, they still do promos for the company. They still need a paycheck.
Exactly. But so like now, think now, 70-plus-year-old Ric Flair gets up in the ring and like he delivers a promo one night. You're like, that's cool. But then someone hits him or gets physical with him, and he's part of it, obviously. But you're like, oh my God, please do not have a heart attack and die right now.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this, yes, but oh my God, please don't die.
Just give him some more cocaine. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Just give him some more cocaine.
Old.
Yeah, just give him some painkillers and some cocaine. He'll be fine.
So that is nice that, hopefully
he died in his sleep.
He died in his sleep, and hopefully he wasn't in pain and stuff. Like, again, you ever see the movie The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where he actually...
Very glad he didn't die like that.
I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad I have not... Like, and there have been, sadly, a couple wrestlers who died from botch moves and things in the ring, which, is a horrible thing on its own. Is like, that's part of the reason, like, there is this practice and like this patience and like you have to trust people.
You have to know what you're doing.
Because you could have a something go wrong and unfortunately, I mean, then that can be with any sport too, obviously.
Right.
But
any combat sport, and then even the mimicking combat sports is still a dangerous thing.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, like, so it was sad. So he died in his sleep, and his ashes were scattered at his ranch in North Carolina. But yeah, so I mean, what did you think of it overall, as far as like getting the?
I thought, okay, so when you said, Matt, we're reading a fucking comic about Andre the Giant, I'm like, God damn it, like, not like God damn it, like I hate this or whatever, but it was like, out of all the wrestlers, he's the one I probably know the most about, or I've seen the most, like, documentaries on or something. So I'm like, I already know all this shit. It's probably going to be like a boring comic or whatever. But I liked that I forgot a lot of the stuff from, I probably watched those when I was like in my high school or something.
Yeah.
So, but I liked the stuff that it talks about in this, and the way that it was drawn and everything was very digestible and very fast moving. So there was good and bad about that, but I liked that it moved fast, and you definitely, when it needed to, sometimes it would sit in moments, give it a little bit longer, and then like when you get to see, like you said, how lonely he was, or like when they cut to a scene with people fucking arguing with him at a bar for no reason or whatever, things like that. I liked that kind of thing. The historical element was cool, and also I haven't really read anything like this about wrestling since getting into like MMA, and since those two things are kind of tied together, like in Japan. And it was cool to see, like, back in the 70s, they were doing things like that in Japan with these people, and it was kind of cool. I liked seeing that kind of historically interesting stuff that now I know about more just on the actual martial arts side of it or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but it's cool because, like I said, they're tied very close together because Japan treats it almost like it's just another extension of this kind of thing. It's more of a show, obviously. But some of those people did fight MMA people or whatever later on. So it was kind of interesting when, they'll just bring people in and be like, let's see what fucking happens. Like, so I thought that was fun that like Andre the Giant side of it would be pretty interesting for them, I think.
And you think like a little bit, just thinking on MMA too, like some of the people who are able to do crest, like Ken Shamrock.
Oh yeah, Ken Shamrock.
He was an awesome wrestler. I watched him in WWE, but then I watched some of his MMA
he did like
stuff.
his whole thing in like Pancrase over there, and even like Boss Rutan and those kind of people back then. And then you had, like I said, Bob Sapp go over there. It's just like he's a giant 350-pound man, and like four Japanese wrestlers are trying to get him. He's just like, yeah, and he's like he's loving it because he's not getting really hit.
Yeah,
and he's like, this is great. Like I get a paycheck.
I can do this all day.
I don't gotta get hurt for real.
Exactly.
So like, I could see a lot of people who are in MMA who are just those big guys, and they're like, I'm just gonna like go over there. But then there were even like the real people that like really fought over there. Like you said, Ken Shamrock had actual matches that were like real hits and stuff over there too. So it was like, oh shit, like they have a good history of crossing over those different areas and stuff. So since I know that now, it was cool to see. Oh, this was kind of like the precursor to all that stuff.
Yeah,
and that they were so into it back then as well. As fun as well. So it was cool learning that, and it was cool learning about the whole like how Hulk got initiated into it, and then the whole like Thunder Lips thing with him and Rocky. Yeah. I didn't know that was like a recreation of a thing that actually happened.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was cool to know that, because I'm a big Rocky fan. Big Thunder Lips fan. So I mean, while I'm not like in love with wrestling itself as like a something I'm going to watch for entertainment or whatever, I like learning about his life and how. Like I said, how difficult it must have been for just him to fucking go from the airport to his hotel. And then at the hotel, it's like, I guess I'm just going to take a shit in the tub because there's no toilet that I can,
we didn't get into some of the stories that I've heard that are like gross and horrible.
Yeah,
like those, and it's just because of, honestly, more stories of circumstance than like him trying to be a douchebag or something. Right. Yeah. It's just, but like, I'm
too big for this room, and I'm going to use the bathroom, and it might not be the way.
Yeah, think about like you said, we just a little bit going back when he was in Japan.
Oh yeah, he said that was the hardest thing.
Yeah, like nothing. He couldn't fit through doorways. He couldn't fit in like beds. When he had his back surgery, they had to put 2 surgical beds together just to get him to be able to be up
to lay flat.
Yeah, so it's crazy. Like to think about how large this man was literally and figuratively as far as larger than life character that he brought about.
Right. Yeah, and so I did enjoy this book a lot. I like the cartoony style. I did think like my only like kind of critique on it was some of the stuff that I felt like should maybe have had a little bit more time spent on it, like his daughter or things like that. Were just kind of like, yeah, he had a daughter. She said this thing. It was like 2 pages long, and then we're moving on to the other stuff. It's like, okay. I thought some of that stuff could have been. I wanted to know what did she think of her dad. Like maybe they had like some kind of maybe if she did the afterword or something of this book, or maybe not this book, but like or he just drew what she said before, previously on in interviews or something, to show like, oh, this is what happened afterwards, and I don't have any, or I hate the man, or I have no judgment on the man, and I wish I knew him better as a kid or whatever. But yeah, like I don't know, I just felt like there was a little some stuff they had gave a lot of time on, which was good, but then sometimes they just you got to cut time somewhere, and I guess some things were just not as fleshed out as I would have wanted or whatever, or just they just seem like they kind of pass by them fastly because they're just trying to move the story along now. So, yeah, and then maybe like the end of his life, I feel like they do just go like, and he had like that last match in Japan, and then 2 years later this happened, he died, and it was like, okay, well, it would have been cool to maybe have a couple pages of like how his last couple, his like the actual pain, the actual medical stuff that he was going through, what it was actually like.
That's kind of that was one of the things that I like. I had some things around there. Like I told you a little bit about like some of the last wrestling things that he was going to do, and he appeared on WCW once during the Monday Night Wars, kind of in the 90s. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
And like he didn't do it to like hurt anybody. He was invited, but like Vince McMahon was like, everything, because at the time, obviously he's competing, so he's like, can't believe. But then he and Vince, obviously, he told Vince, and he was like, oh, okay, I didn't realize. But like he was like real mad at him at the time for that. And, cross promotion. You get it. Vince McMahon, he wanted. He still, I'm sure, wants to control all of it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
still, like if you come back, Andre.
Yeah.
I have your contract still right here. You still owe me 2 fights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got
in hell.
Yeah, hell in a cell, in actual hell.
Exactly. Cage match.
So yeah, and like you said, that it would be nice to kind of they had a couple pages of like going into like those kind of like last little tidbits of like him trying to be part of the business, and also like
which is more on like the personal side more too, because that's the stuff we don't really know about too much. About some of his wrestling stuff obviously because it was on TV and everything. It's documented well, but maybe there was some stuff either between his daughter and him, or between just himself and his doctors or some shit that would have been like, oh, like this is what it was like his last days, walking around or whatever. Like this. Or maybe there wasn't anything to tell, and that's what it is. But I don't know. I would have said, and he didn't have too much more health problems other than his heart just gave out. Maybe if he had said that, I would be like, oh, then there wasn't anything to tell. But I just assume there's got to be. Yeah. If his leg just breaks randomly from him standing up one
he becomes Mr. Glass because he's so his bones are so brittle at this point.
Mr. Glass. Yeah. So but I thought it was really good overall. I would give this one I'll give this one like a solid 6.5. Yeah. 6.5. Yeah, I think it was good to. It's a good read, even if you don't care about wrestling. It's good to like as a subject to read about and learn about. And also just like from a historical point of view, like from the 70s and the 60s, like, oh, this is what it was like in France, or this is what it was like growing up at that time period. And then wrestling coming in its age, where it's gonna now take over the 90s is like a big thing. Like I said, there were toys and shit, wrestle buddies and everything when I was a kid. So,
I'll tell you this: I told you, I like wrestling a little bit now. I'm still kind of pay attention, but I don't like one of the things I have like tried to hold myself back on is like going all after like memorabilia merchandising because like that can get crazy. And specifically, like we both have Funko Pops, and I try to be more selective. I've only have 2 wrestling Funko Pops. I might get one of Macho Man maybe, but I only have a Hulk Hogan and an Andre the Giant. Like those are my
recreate that match.
Exactly. No, every day. No, but I was gonna say like he is one of the few that like I hold. It is. It's it's a 6-inch. And Hulk Hogan's is the normal size, so it is fun. Yeah, the size difference and whatnot. But yeah, like he is one of the few that like even knowing all of the things, like I still hold a regard for like how much he gave of himself to like make this larger than life persona to like entertain people.
Yeah, it was cool to know that he actually like he sold it. Like he I don't know if he loved this life, but he took it.
He definitely did it
what
first.
he could do. Like he knew this is probably the best I'm going to get. And I make a shit ton of money, and it does give me opportunity to see the whole world. And they even say, like, he said, like, I got to see more of the world than most people. I got to have more friends than most people. I got to drink more drinks than most people.
Yeah.
Have more food than most people. Like, so he definitely seemed to at least like that part of the job, even though obviously it was hard on him. But the fact that he sold it so well, even when he's going through hard times and everything, you see that he cared about the job itself or the business or how he was portrayed in it.
Exactly. Yeah. He had a mind for the business, and he kept it like all the like old school hardcore wrestlers that you really do know about, like that obviously had a name for it, and that's how they did it, is they were able to keep like I don't want to keep the illusion, we'll say,
right, of
like this is how things are, and like this is like quote unquote really happening,
right,
and like he was like a master at that. So
yeah, so that was cool to like just see. So.
And so I'll say I would give this, as far as because of having that wrestling fandom from my childhood and still a bit, and growing up with them, I would give this one a 7.
Okay,
I'm gonna go a little higher. Like I still like you said, like it was a quick read, and it's fun, and like it's
definitely check this one out.
Artist,
it is like a good, quick, like solid story read. And never once was like, God, when is this going to be over?
No, the art is fun, and I think, like you said, like sometimes some of the moments where like they brush through, and even like again, because I know a little bit, but like his odd jobs as a kid, or like his early wrestling career and stuff, like it would have been nice. Like they could have been a little bit longer, even with like, because it wasn't super wordy, obviously,
right? So
like it could have been longer. I could have had probably another 20 to 30 pages
if it was that. I would be fine with that.
Of filling in some of that stuff too. So like I feel the same, but almost more on like a little more detail on some of those moments of his life. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I give it a solid 7. It's a fun read if you're a wrestling fan. Or not,
definitely.
You just are curious.
Yeah,
like it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't know about how most wrestling fans are now, but like going back in the past isn't something that people do all the time. So if you are interested in wrestling or like wrestling now and you want to know some history of what happened before, this is a really good read. And then just in general, the person who is this larger than life Andre the Giant, like that.
The 8th wonder of the world.
The 8th wonder of the world. There you go. Learning about how he goes from like little France, farm guy or whatever, to biggest wrestling star in the world is a pretty interesting story as well. So definitely check it out for that reason. And like I said, the cartooning in this is good. Like I liked the way it's sparse, but it's also like everything is communicated perfectly. I didn't have any issues being like, wait,
who's this or what's going on?
Yeah. You knew exactly who everybody was. Even if like obviously if you're familiar with the wrestlers, but like I knew who Hulk Hogan was instantly just from his caricature in this book. Like, and Andre is drawn very well the whole time and everything. So, good art, good story, and anything else we missed? Or?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, with that being said, next week we're going to read Why the Last Man, Volume 1, which is, if you don't know, there's a FX series on Hulu coming out.
Heck yeah.
For Why the Last Man, and season 1. And so we figured, hey, might as well do the first volume of that.
And this is fun. This is one for both of us that we actually both have read, because Matt really enjoyed it when it came out. He got me to read it, and I read several trades of it. I didn't quite finish it yet, but I was really enjoying it. So I'm excited now that there's a show coming. The trailer looked cool. So
I think I had every issue of this book for a while. Then I sold my comics.
So I'm excited to jump back into it and kind of get that specific knowledge beforehand and kind of compare them and let you guys know about it if you haven't checked it out yet. So either spoil it by listening to us or
read it yourself.
Yeah.
But and we will see you guys on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.
Brother.
Brother.